Hello everyone, update 2.5 is in just a few hours and it was an extremely busy week with tons of news because of the live stream and they posted everything really late this time. So I'm going to do a lore recap but quick edition. It's going to be very straightforward with just the key information. I was working on a much longer script that I even recorded and edited a little bit, but that is going to take too long for me to edit. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to release a 2.0 to 2.5 fully detailed lore recap once the update is already here. So this video is just for you to refresh your memory before we head into 2.5, and I promise that for 3.0 I'll do a proper lore recap again. So this will be just a quick refresher, not too much in depth. Hey everyone, Moonsugar editor here. I am tired. It's been a busy week. I've done tons of videos this week covering all the news, and there was also Petit Planet and also Loftia, and also like there was so much going on. So this is a very low quality video. I really apologize for that, but like I mentioned earlier, I promise I'll do a very detailed lore recap again after 2.5 drops, and then we can kind of like complete the missing pieces here. For this video, I will just leave the updates, trailers on the background to you to have like a visual interest to look at, but you can treat this video as a podcast of sorts and you can alt tab if you want. It's not gonna have anything visually interesting. I really apologize for that. I never do videos like this and you guys know that, but it was just an exception because this week in particular was excessive, you know, and I still didn't want to like give up on the video because I feel like a lore recap is really important because 2.5 is going to be main story. So yeah, hope this helps somehow, and I'm sorry, I'll definitely not do this again. So let's get started. First of all, really quick refresher of the last year, but if you need a full detailed lore recap from 1.0 to 1.11, I already have a video like that, very in detail, and I'll link that down below if you want a refresher from the previous story as well. That one is like fully complete. You can definitely watch that when you have some time. But just quickly, Nikki is isekai'd into Mirrorland through the wardrobe. She meets Anna and she adventures a little bit. Then she also meets the seer, and when we meet the seer and Anna, we learn that they are resetting time and that Nikki is stuck in a time loop. Every time that Nikki adventures through Mirrorland, she fails miserably and Mirrorland is destroyed. The Heart of Infinity consumes everything, and then the seer comes along, grabs Nikki, resets time, and throws Nikki to the start again. That's why Nikki has so many fragmented memories with other Nikkis of other time loops. And every loop is completely different from the other. Well, not completely, but slightly. And those slight differences actually affect the next loop. But the loops also exist sort of at the same time. So the seer grabs Nikki and resets her. We have confirmation of that from the seer herself, and we also learn that Anna knows about that as well, and that potentially Anna has done the first reset. Then we travel across Wishfields, and we also get to explore Dungeon Islands. And this is slightly important because it may relate to the story in 2.0 here in Itzaland. In Dungeon Realm, when we get there, we take the place of another character. At the end of Dungeon Realm story, we learn that this other character wasn't real. It wasn't a real person. Artist Nikki was not a real human being. She was painted by Artist Cat. And Artist Cat was Nikki from another time loop. So a previous time loop, Nikki failed. Her pain of failing was so big that instead of dying, she used the powers of the Heart of Infinity to create an entire realm from scratch. She painted creatures, she painted people and plants, including Miss Bai and Artist Nikki. Artist Nikki was just a self-insert from Nikki to live in that realm, when she, Nikki herself, sacrificed herself to the ink pool to preserve the cycle of reincarnation in Dungeon Realm and help them die and reborn. So basically she fails, dies, creates the realm. The thing is, that's another loop, Nikki. So why does our Nikki get to experience Dungeon Realm? That's because of the In One. And the In One was the energy, the bond created by the people of Dungeon Realm over and over again through this cycle. So the more cycles, the more Dungeon Realm became real. And once Dungeon Realm became real, it connected to the Sea of Stars and then allowed our Nikki to travel there. So our Nikki is not the same Nikki of Artist Cat, but because they technically are just from different realms or parallel universes, I guess you could call it like that, from another loop, she has this fragmented memory. Because technically, it is all her, but she's made of many hers. So this is important to keep in mind because this will, I think, relate to the story from Itzaland as well. Now, we get to Itzaland. Update 2.0, this is where the most crucial information will happen. I have just played through 2.0 on live stream very recently, so I'll link that down below as well if you also want a refresher just by watching. But essentially, 3 years ago-ish, the Saintess wakes up at the mother's room. All hurt, covered in scars, she's found by the Shroomlings and taken to Spira. In 3 days, the Docilists appear claiming that she was their Saintess. Eventually, through those days, the Saintess remembers that the Titan King is not actually the god, but Echoros the dragon. However, the Saintess is very weak, very frail. The only few things that she remembers is that she is a descendant of Echoros or a part of Echoros and that she's carrying that golden mark, which I think the golden mark belongs to Echoros, not to the Saintess. But we are not sure yet. I imagine we're gonna find out very soon. 3 days ago-ish, Nikki finds out about the clay pot in Wishfield and she decides to travel to Itzaland. When she's traveling to Itzaland, the Saintess, which is not our Nikki, goes to Spira main area for the ride. But she fell on the stairs and passes away. With her last few, will, strength, energy, she connects to Nikki. And in this subconscious, this 3 days, somehow, maybe through the golden mark or with the Saintess powers, Nikki replaces her. So Nikki takes the Saintess place and Nikki wakes up at the Snail Ranch. So just keep in mind, the Saintess wakes up at the mother's room all hurt. Nikki wakes up at the Snail Ranch, taking the place of the Saintess. They are not the same person. By exploring Itzaland, Nikki keeps feeling this familiarity with everything, either hinting towards another Nikki from another loop, like happened on Dungeon Realm, or hinting towards a time travel, hence why we have the clay pot with Nikki herself there. We open up the cutscenes for Itzaland by Nikki meeting this little spirit which guides us to the Saintess, which is where that subconscious meeting and switcheroo happens. There, the Saintess says to Nikki that she needs to complete the Echoros' final judgment and that she was giving Nikki what remains of her identity and power. That's how nobody really can tell that Nikki is not the Saintess, also because nobody saw the Saintess face until then. We go adventuring around Itzaland, we make new friends like Wilhelm, Domi Baba, and we also find out about the Docilists doing some shady stuff like experimenting on the snails and also implanting a corruption seed on the mother's room to drain her energy. We also find out about how the Titan King was not the god of Itzaland, but instead it was Echoros, the dragon. We find out also about the guardian beast Whirls, not to confuse with the Saintess little snail Whirly. The guardian beast was chased away by Lady Medell, but everyone thought she was dead or just like disappeared. But Nikki gets her collar before meeting her up at the top of Spira and manages to, I guess, purify and also remind the guardian beast that it's Nikki, and she puts the collar around the guardian beast. This is a very important moment because at the descriptions of Providence Immemorial, we learn that 1,000 years ago, Nikki meets Echoros and the Guardian Beast, and she puts the collar in the Guardian Beast there at that moment. That's the first time. This is also a meeting that changes Echoros' perspectives on humans in general. He wasn't really interested in them, and after meeting Nikki by saving the Guardian Beast with the collar, he starts changing his mind. So this whole situation has happened Again, there's some theories about perhaps that being another Nikki from another loop, but also I think it's more probable that we'll time travel and actually meet Akros and the Guardian Beast 1000 years ago. Perhaps, maybe, hopefully. That'll be fun. All we know, though, that is fully confirmed is that Lady Medell wants that golden mark. But she has one sole reason: drain the powers of the Mother Shroom and collect the golden mark from the Saintess. She doesn't care who the Saintess is. She doesn't care if the Saintess lives or dies. She wants that golden mark. To why, we do not know yet. She says that she wants to revive the Titan King, but there are many questions about that. Does she really want to revive Titan King when Titan King is not a god? Or does she want to revive Akros the dragon, but she's lying about the Titan King? For what reason? And does the Titan King have Akros mark too, because she has these like golden markings on her? And why does she have the mark? I have many theories about that. I think that perhaps Akros gifted it to the Titan King and she's not the villain that we think she is. I also have theories about the connection between Akros, Saintess, and Titan King and Lady Medell, but you can check those in another video because I don't want to talk about my theories in this one. I just want to do a quick lore recap for you so you can refresh your memory with only facts, only confirmed information, so we don't get those mixed up, but just raising some questions that will probably be answered a little bit at least on the next story. Well, hopefully they should. Then at the end of 2.0, we have a small little epilogue or prologue for the next quests, and we learn about the fact that we are going to travel to the Boneyard and also to Heaven's Reach. Now, we know that in 2.5 we are only getting Boneyard, so I'm almost sure that 2.8 will be Heaven's Reach, and that's when the story will actually end. This is super interesting because Heaven's Reach is this ancient golden city that is lost. Nobody knows where it is. We also know it was a city of gold and the city of titans. I really hope that it's either underwater or it's a separate realm with like us time traveling and then the titans are alive. I would love to explore a titan city that is super gigantic and with like gigantic people and stuff like that. That would be really cool, but we have no idea yet. We'll probably learn about it though at the end of 2.5 main story. We also have a small chit chat between Nikki and the other characters, and we learn that Akros had created the dragons, the titans, and the shroomlings alongside with Mother Shroom. So the shroomlings are children of Mother Shroom, but they are also children of Akros. Also, Nikki does not talk about Perxolians here, so do keep in mind that Perxolians are not direct children of Akros. They may be descendants of the dragons, but not direct descendants of Akros. Also, I just want to insert here that on the 2.5 trailer, we learned a few more things as well. So we learned that Akros gave a task to the dragons, which has something to do with the souls in the Boneyard. The Boneyard is a place where all of the souls of all of the living beings go to before they cross over to the other side and potentially reincarnate or stay in the limbo. However, it seems that the dragons gave that task to the Perxolians, but we do not know why. And I imagine that that's why the Perxolians suffer with the soul drift, which is a disease or illness of sorts that affects the bodies of the Perxolians. This task with guiding the souls and all that is so heavy on them for some reason that they have these healing areas in the Boneyard and also healing methods like meditation and other things like that. We also learn that this update will be the showdown between Nikki and Lady Medell. That's what they said on the live stream, so I really think that 2.8 will be Heaven's Reach and very Titan focused instead of Perxolians/dragons. Another thing that we learned at the end of the 2.0 is that the other Perxolians are not really on board with Lady Medell, like that those two other guys that are also Perxolians/docilists, they are not really like, they are just keeping an eye on her. So maybe there is like a conflict of interest here. And my current theory that I mentioned on the few past theory videos is that maybe the Perxolians who are suffering with this soul drift, maybe they just don't want to do this soul guiding anymore, and that makes sense for them to try to reincarnate or to revive Akros and then just like kind of like quit. Or maybe there is a more nefarious reason they want like immortality, not reincarnation, something like that. But we'll learn all that in 2.5. Then we get to update 2.1. In this update, Nikki will travel to the forest of Slumber in the Elderwood Forest. There, she finds this cabin with a book filled with poems that were written by Melotti, which we later meet as well. Melotti had an attachment attachment to a certain behemoth. They kind of like live together most of their life. Sadly, this behemoth is now very old and is passing away. This is the frost behemoth that we find in the center of the forest, and in this update we learn about the cycle of life of the behemoths. When they are approaching their deaths, they go to the forest to rest and they pass away becoming trees. It's really beautiful, very similar to Ancient Magus Bride story about the dragons in that anime. And the behemoths, when they pass away, they become these trees and they become part of the forest. To the behemoths, that's a happy thing, and so it is for Melotti as well, because they have that connection, they understand each other. But there is also a baby behemoth there taking care of the elder behemoth, and the baby behemoth doesn't really understand. He's just really sad that the older behemoth is passing away, and so is Nikki. And Nikki creates an attachment to this baby behemoth and decides to adopt him. That's how we got the whole baby behemoth minigame of raising multiple behemoths at the warm fur home. So this story is essentially about the cycle of life of the behemoths, and it's quite nice, emotional, and interesting. It's a really good story, and I recommend watching it if you skip that. Then in update 2.2, we explore the Wanxiang Realm. Here we receive a message from Tan Youyou, and then we go meet Tan Youyou, and then Momo swallows a jade. It's kind of random, kind of crazy, but we ended up in the Wanxiang Realm. Then we get to meet the Chromafaces. They are people made out of stone, and we also learn that their moon is kind of like breaking, and they're trying to rebuild the moon by performing these roles. They get tokens at the token hall, which assigns them a specific role. Like, hey, you're going to be a restaurant owner, you are going to be a princess, you're going to be a floral parade dancer, and so on. They get these tokens and they are forced to follow that token role. They cannot act out of their role. They are eternally stuck in that role-playing game, wanting or not. Because of that, many of them are not allowed to do the things that they love and follow their dreams, such as the girl that is obsessed with lanterns. Eventually, we learn that that's actually the problem, that is, that's the source of the curse, because they're not having the freedom to follow the things that they really want to do and live the life that is, worth living. Eventually, we also learn that the little jade that Momo ate is actually the original Chroma deer, the creature who made the Wanxiang Realm and the Chromafaces. We then learn that Chroma herself created the token system because she wanted the Chromafaces to learn how to be more real, more human. Overall, we see her realizing that that was sort of a mistake, but also not, because the Chromafaces did learn how to be more real and more like real people, and they now have all of their personalities and desires and wishes and dreams. So everything ends quite well, but there are still some shady stuff about Tan Youyou. We don't really know what his deal is. We learn that he has some sort of like dark womancy that shows up very slightly and very few times. We go and explore Wanxiang trying to get coins. The story is very fun, and I'm eliminating here all of the non-crucial information, but I also recommend you watch that if you skip that story or you want a more detailed refresher. I'm trying to maintain here for this quick lore recap just the stuff that you may potentially need for 2.5, but I'll definitely make a more detailed lore recap in the future, because this is one of the parts. The 2.2 story is the story that I cut off the most because there is a lot of fun stuff here. But overall, 2.2 Wanxiang Realm, Chromadia creates that realm, creates the Chromafaces. She puts them through the token system to learn how to be people, and they learn, but they also get tired of it because they were being forced to do things that they didn't want to anymore. All in all, it's very similar to Wanxiang Realm, and that's why I wanted to refresh you on Wanxiang Realm's story as well, because pretty much everything that the Chroma Deer does is almost the same thing that Artist Cat, the other Nikki, does as well. And the in one is basically a parallel of the token system itself. Both these things are to, put people through these repeated lives until they learn or become more real. Then in 2.3, we got the story with Roucoco. And honestly, there isn't really any crucial information on this class, so I'll summarize really quickly. But overall, I felt like this was definitely a filler. I may have missed something, but by watching the story again, of me doing and also reading on the Wikipedia, I didn't really pick up any like crucial information. It's a very cute story, but I don't think we're gonna need anything from there in the 2.5 story specifically. We learn about Roucoco's, inner struggles by participating in this idol competition with humans and other people. She suffers a lot of discrimination there, and she also fails the competition. She gets disqualified, and she's just like, her mental health is just deteriorating. It's really sad, and eventually Nikki enters her kind of like mental realm, and Nikki kind of like witnesses all of these inner dialogue between Roucoco and her little deer, which I think is just Roucoco with herself trying to get rid of her imperfect parts. And it's very much about her mental health, her sense of self, and at the end Roucoco herself gets out of that issue. Essentially, we're just there for the ride, and we also get the outfit, which is just a idol from a fairy tale. That's it. I don't really know what else to say about this one here, but it's a very cute and emotional story for sure. In update 2.4, we get a lot of more crucial information about how the Titans lived. We learn about the Titan society, and we also learn the story of Ritali and Nikos, two Titans that lived here 1,000 years ago. In this update, we experience a mix of multiple different fairy tale stories to uncover what is really happening in the Misty Forest. A titan named Ritali, who liked to live alongside nature more than machines, was living in the forest instead of living at Heaven's Reach. In the forest, she created life forms made of plants, almost like dolls made of plants, that help the environment by dispersing the miasma in all of Itzaland. She named and modeled her inventions based on the fairy tales because she loved fairy tales. She creates these creatures, and these creatures start their work purifying the miasma. So we learn here that the Titans were still alive when the miasma came along 1,000 years ago. So they survived the Veilfall and the Heavenfall. We also learned that Nikos, another Titan, was banished from Heaven's Reach because he did very suspicious experiments with Itzalands, and he was kicked off the Heaven's Reach because of that. So he was a shady guy, and he was kicked from the Titans society because he was doing shady stuff. After leaving the city, he goes after Ritali because he heard about her success as an inventor and decided to make a scheme to recreate life like she did and claim credit, maybe show to the Titan King and be able to go back to Heaven's Reach and attain that glory. Or perhaps because she was experimenting with life in a way that could be useful for him with the Itzaland's life in a way. Because of that, he approaches Ritali pretending that he wants to learn, but in truth, he was slowly poisoning her. So that's why we get the whole drink the soup situation. Drinking the soup is the same thing as drinking a poison. She got even worse, more sick, and he would disguise the cure as more of that poison. So he basically killed Ritali, and she kind of like figured it out at the end. She kind of knew that he was a little bit shady. He had some other intentions, so she protected her lab and her creations. Little Red Riding Hood was Ritali's greatest creation and her favorite fairy tale as well, so she wanted to do a coming-of-age ceremony for Red Hoods. But unfortunately, Ritali ended up dying before that, and Nikos took over. When Nikos took over, he started poisoning the creations to make them forget about Ritali, making everyone in the world think that everyone was creations of Nikos all along, so he could claim credit. But Little Red was able to see through his lies, and she created a time loop in order to protect all the creations. She tells Nikki that she created that separate realm to make sure that the coming-of-age ceremony never happened, to prevent everyone from dying at the hands of the scavenger, which is a creature that Nikos put in there. So she was reversing time every time they got to the coming-of-age ceremony / grandma's funeral. All the fairy tales are not real, they are just made-up scenarios. Because Nikki chose to help, stay, listen, instead of just drinking and forgetting and leaving the forest, she trusted Nikki with the entirety, the true story there. Nikki kind of figured it out as well, and Nikki decides to enter the loop, listen everyone's perspectives, and then she talks to Little Red, saying that she doesn't need to drink the soup or keep stuck on that loop. She can just make her own decisions and break free from all of that and be her own person. Little Red then takes Nikki to Ritali's room, the laboratory, where she created all of these plant dolls. There she actually left a final gift to Little Red because Nikki helps her enter this place again, and in this lab she finds the final gift that Ritali left to Red Hood, a gun. Little Red is able to end the loop due to the gift, and in the end all Ritali's creations are able to now live freely and do whatever, especially because miasma is basically purified. We also learned that Nikos, despite trying to claim the credit, he was never able to reproduce Ritali's creations like perfectly, so he never got that glory, and we don't really know what happened to him in the end, but we do know that the researchers that got into the Misty Forest after all of this ordeal, they set out to clean up Ritali's name and spread word that she was actually the creator. It's very similar to the Sith story in update 1.7, where Sif and Alyssa was the best of friends, but people in today times, in the present time, thought that they were enemies, but it's just because it was a massive misunderstanding and people just didn't really know what really happened. So I think that this is important because we may see something like that again in 2.5 or 2.8, where maybe some of the stories are actually misunderstanding and the present story that we learned are not actually the full truth. So I'm very interested to see where the stories will end up, and this was my very extremely super fast quick recap of all of the updated stories. Again, this is just a small refresher for you to kind of like get into 2.5 kind of knowing the key information, but I'll definitely work on a more detailed, more complete, extensive lore recap from 2.0 to 2.5, and also I'll do another one at the end of the year for 3.0 as well. I hope this helps. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to all of the members and patrons who support the channel and make these videos possible, and see you on the next one.
Ryan Little.
Listen